What if the part of you that feels too much is actually trying to tell you what you needed all along? That part, that gets anxious when someone kind of pulls away from interactions with you, that part that gets angry when you feel dismissed, the part that shuts down when conflict starts, the part that over explains again and again because it wants to obviously be understood, the part that says yes when it wants you to say no. Most people look at these reactions and they think to themselves, what the heck is wrong with me? But the better question is, from my perspective, what need is this reaction trying to protect? Because underneath many of our strongest patterns, there's usually a need that never got met safely. Hey there, Evolver. If you have found this channel, you're probably someone who thinks deeply about life, growth, and the human mind. My name is Amelia, and this is a channel where we explore the psychology, neuroscience, and lived experience of what it actually means to evolve as a human being. In my work with individuals, couples, and leaders, one of the patterns that I see constantly is this. People judge their reactions or their behaviors before they even understand the need underneath it. They'll say to themselves things like, I'm too sensitive, I'm too needy, I'm too reactive, I'm too intense for this crowd, I shut down way too easily, and I overthink everything, absolutely everything. But when we slow it down, the reaction that I find is far from random. From a nervous system perspective, behavior is often just simply an attempt to create safety, connection, certainty, relief, control, or like we've talked about before, protection. So the question is not only what am I doing on that behavior surface level that is observable and you can see. From my perspective, the deeper question is, what need is this part of me trying to meet? In the last video, we talked about self-sabotage, something that we all love discovering a little bit more. But we explored it a little bit more from the lens of self-protection. The idea that a part of you is blocking change, and that part that's blocking change just might not be your enemy. It may be and is likely trying to protect you from some type of pain, some type of rejection. But protection usually forms around a need for safety, a need for belonging, a need for dignity, a need for autonomy, a need for rest, a need to be seen, heard, believed in, or even valued. So this episode is about learning how to listen underneath the pattern. Because behavior is, yes, in fact, what you can see. My friends, we all know that behavior is observable. It's that outside that we can, if we were looking at someone, kind of write down, she was this, he was that. The need is what the behavior is trying to solve. And that's where I find, for my evolvers out there, this is not something that we are really good at as human beings. We're not really great at understanding the deeper layer, the need that the behavior on the surface is trying to solve. So someone on the outside looking in, right, they might look from the outside super clingy, but the need underneath might be simply reassurance. Someone might on the outside look controlling, but the need underneath might simply be safety. Someone on the outside might look avoidant as hell. We all have someone in mind that we know has looked like that on the outside, but deep down, the need underneath might simply be for space or protection. Someone might look angry, but the need underneath might be respect. Someone else might look totally shut down in their outside appearances, but their need underneath that might simply be relief. And this matters because if you only judge the behavior, you miss the need. And I love this from the standpoint of judging a book by its cover, because we've all heard that old adage or that saying, don't judge a book by its cover. And to be fair, I've done that one too many times. And I know that we have all done that in one way, shape, or form. Another analogy is don't judge the dog because of its coat. It's all these sayings that we have that are inviting us, that are welcoming us as human beings to, in my opinion, go a little bit beneath the surface. However, a lot of us don't really have all that capacity in our nervous systems to scratch a little bit below the surface. And more often than not, we simply see the behavior, what is observable on the outside, and we make a snap judgment called an appraisal. We think we know what the deeper need is deep down inside, but yet all of this knowing, appraisal, judgment is actually fairly unconscious. So let's bring this into the realm of your life. And I'm thinking of a client I have written down right here. Her name's in front of me. And this client is so representative of so many people and what they go through when it comes to relationships. Interpersonal relationships is one of the most hardest things for all of us to navigate through, because it's not really something that we learn per se, how to go a little bit underneath the behavior, underneath the surface. So let's say someone you care about. It takes a little bit longer than usual for them to respond back to you via text. On the surface, maybe you start checking your phone a little bit once every minute, and then it kind of spirals to like you keep your phone open face up, even while you're having dinner with other people that you really want to be present for. What happens when they're not responding, you end up kind of replaying that last conversation you had. You wonder if you said something wrong the last time you guys hung out. And what you notice, you kind of feel your body getting a little bit of that activated. Maybe inside of you, it might feel hot, or it might feel a little frantic even. And maybe a part of you wants to send another message, just kind of to feel close again, check in. If you only judge the behavior, you might say to yourself, I'm being needy. But if you listen to what's going on underneath that surface, the need itself might be, I need reassurance. I need consistency. I need to know that connection is still intact. I need to feel chosen, not just tolerated. Now, that does not mean you should act on every impulse. And truth be told, a lot of us actually are in this scenario, very much concerned for the other person's safety. That's a whole nother conversation. But it does mean that the impulse itself, that frenetic feeling underneath the surface, it's giving you information. And it's that information that I want us to plug into. Because the work, it is not to shame the need. The work is to learn how to meet that need without abandoning yourself or pressuring someone else to regulate you. So if we're hearing what I'm sharing and we're really starting to absorb it, I want you to think about the next interaction that you have, or maybe one that you had today, where you notice that impulse. After today's video, we're going to kind of look at that impulse a little bit differently. Now, I have another client that's written down here, and I want to bring this one forward because I see this pattern a lot. Another example is anger. Anger is an emotion that more of us, if we could never talk about it, we would. And anger and defensiveness, this is a topical pattern of behavior that we see come up again and again in interpersonal relationships and dynamics. However, I often find that these conversations behind the scenes with clients, no one's really holding a space to talk about it. So let's talk about this example. Let's say, for example, someone says, hey, that feels a little dismissive, and your system immediately starts to heat up. You can literally feel it kind of turn up the core of your body temp. I've been there before. Oftentimes when I get heated, I know that there's a deeper need that is really being neglected. I wonder if you feel the same way. One of the things that you also might notice is that your tone changes. Your chest, this region right here, maybe some of your throat, it tightens. And you find yourself kind of shifting into that, I want to prove my point. You want the other person on the other side of this to understand why what they said was wrong or inaccurate. If you're protectors of truth, shout out to you. Inaccuracy can also cue this up in your body. And on the surface, it might look like that defensiveness, but underneath that behavior, again, the need might be, I need respect in this moment. I need to feel heard. I need my experience to matter right here and right now. I need to know that I am not invisible here. And again, that does not mean every single reaction that you have is justified in its expression. Let me tell you that. As much as we want to believe that every single impulse and reaction is justified in its expression, what is more true is that the need underneath it deserves to be understood. And trust me, I see you. If you have challenges when it comes to deservancy, immediately your nervous system is going to call BS on what I just said. And this is where maturity comes in. Immaturity acts out of that need. Impulse to action. Maturity, on the other hand, learns how to name the need underneath. It's not an easy practice, but my friends, it is one that is well worth it. Speaking of friends, the third person that I have written down here is a business owner, a leader, someone who tries deeply to show up professionally as a leader, just like many of you watching this. This pattern shows up professionally too. A leader keeps overfunctioning. They answer every single message sent from their team in Slack and text message on the phone, email, immediately, without fail. They take on way too much. They fix the problems before anyone else has to think. Been guilty of that. They become the emotional and operational container for everyone with everything. And on the surface, it might look like what we know as or want to consider or call or put that badge on as responsibility. But underneath the need might be, I need to feel valuable. I need to feel secure. I need to know that I won't be replaced. I need to feel in control because uncertainty feels safe, or one that my friends tend to say, friends being clients, if you pick up what I'm putting down, my dear clients tend to say this to me. I need to make sure that the standard is met. And this is why high functioning people can totally burn out and spin out while looking highly capable. Because the performance is often meeting that deeper need that has not been named yet. So if you do not know the need that's underneath your overfunctioning, you may keep calling it excellence when it's actually survival. And I'm not just talking from clinical research experience here. I have been there too. That line, though, it matters. From a nervous system perspective, I had to learn this the hard way. So let me give you some of the cliff notes. From a nervous system perspective, needs are not just simply emotional preferences. I have a lot of leaders coming to me, especially male, that are having a hard time understanding that emotions are signals to a deeper need. And regardless of your gender or your sex, needs are not just emotional preferences. They are connected to safety, my friends. Your system is constantly scanning, asking the question, am I safe? Am I connected? Do I belong? Do I have agency? Am I seen? Do I matter. And when a need feels threatened or at risk, your nervous system is responding. It might fight, it might flee, it might totally freeze up, it might fawn, it might even shut down. And over a sustained amount of time, you might have gone through all of those. So when you have a strong reaction, the goal is not to immediately judge it. Trust me, we really need to have that judgmental part step aside. Instead, the goal is to ask, what is my system trying to protect or restore? This is why surface level advice often fails short. And in my opinion, it honestly makes me really sad because we don't realize how much is right on the surface, inviting us to look deeper within, to go a little bit below the surface, and is right there for our own discovery. Because it falls where we can pick it up. All of those data points. It falls exactly where we're capable of learning our system, of learning our patterns, of learning our own needs. And so this surface level advice, man, it focuses on controlling the reaction without understanding what's underneath that deeper need. Calm down. Stop overthinking. Don't be so sensitive. Just set the boundary. Communicate clearly. Write it down. Deliver XYZ expectation. But if the underlying need is still unnamed, what do you think is going to happen to that pattern? The pattern itself usually comes back. It's like whack-a-mole. You just put a Band-Aid on or you try to whack it down, it's going to come back up. Why? Well, it's going to come back in a different form because you have not addressed the need. But it comes back again and again. Why? Well, because unmet needs do not just simply disappear when we shame them, when we wish they would disappear. As a matter of fact, this is that hard part we sometimes learn just simply through experience, not necessarily wisdom. They actually come louder and louder, more hidden, or sometimes even more indirect. And this also connects to our identity. So there's a whole layer to this that often is in our unconscious. And when we think about it from an identity standpoint, if you grow up or you grew up in any phase of your growing up chapters, be it when you were a kid, a teen, a young adult, as a young and budding and growing leader, believing your needs are too much, inconvenient, unsafe, or not allowed, you may start building an identity around needing less. I just got off the phone with a client. We were talking about this, and her identity is so deeply built, and you might resonate with this, about being independent, about being the easy one, the strong one, the one that has no maintenance, low maintenance. A badge of honor was given to her by being the low maintenance child. And so if you start to have and resonate with some of those identities of being the strong one, the low maintenance one, the independent one, I hear that often, the one who doesn't need to ask. And sometimes that identity gets rewarded. What happens then? Right? Like I said, that badge of honor. Interesting. What gets rewarded and praised ends up being something that we return back to. So people end up praising you for being more capable. But internally, part of you may still be totally waiting for that someone to just simply notice what you never learned how to ask for. So part of this evolver's journey is, in fact, learning. Having needs does not make me weak. Having needs does not make me too much. Having needs makes me human. I'll let that one sink in. Because I've seen far too many people, far too many leaders, far too many couples who have had such an unconscious narrative to themselves. The identity, the reinforcing habits, the reinforcing automatic thoughts of having needs somehow makes you less than. But that is not the truth. You are human. You have needs. So when you notice a strong reaction, here's what I'm going to suggest you instead kind of start with. Let's start with step number 1. Let's name that reaction without judging it. So instead of being too dramatic, right? Picture that friend analogy or that friend example when they weren't really texting you back and you maybe saying, I'm too dramatic, I'm too needy. I want you to try to notice, I notice I'm activated. I notice I want reassurance. I notice I want to pull away. I notice I'm getting defensive. I notice I'm afraid to ask. And if you want, I've suggested this to a couple of clients of mine. If saying I is maybe not getting there, you can also say, I'm noticing a part of me is afraid to ask. I'm noticing a part of me wants to pull away. I'm noticing a part of me is getting really activated. I find to super circumvent the ego, saying I notice a part of me, insert whatever you're observing, that can go a really long way. Why? Because observation creates space. What do you do after that space, though? This is where step number 2 comes in. Ask what need is underneath that signal, is underneath that impulse, is underneath that initial observation, which is the first bubble of our truth. You can ask yourself, what am I needing right now? What feels threatened? What would feel supportive for me? What am I afraid I will not get? What am I trying to protect? And same thing goes for this. What is a part of me trying to protect? What am I afraid I will not get? What would feel supportive for my parts? What part of me feels threatened? You can even say something like that. But I don't want you rushing this, because sometimes the first answer is not the deepest one. And my friends, honestly, usually our ego or protective part is standing at the door. So go a little bit deeper, because our first answer is not usually directly to our, what I call truth ball, which is the clearest form of that need. So let's keep asking, and let's move to step 3. This is where we choose a clean way to honor the need. Because when you go through step number 1 and you move into step number 2, you're understanding that need. Now, what do we do with that? That's where the fun begins, in my opinion. We start doing things a little bit differently. We start behaving, being, even maybe not doing anything at all. But we start to implement change at some of those subatomical levels. And that might mean for you asking for reassurance from a friend. Hey, I need a little bit of reassurance right now. I'm feeling disconnected. It might mean taking space. You know what? I'm going to go over to the break room right now. I need a little bit of space just to gather my thoughts. It might mean setting a boundary, yes, in a way that honors your needs. It might mean giving yourself care and the way that you need it right then and right there, before asking someone else to understand you. It might mean even naming the need directly, which I get it for some is really scary. I think I need a little clarity here. I need a little moment to settle. Give me a sec. I need to feel like we're still connected in the way that I know our relationship really matters to me. I need to know whether you're available for this conversation or not. See, asking directly kind of feels a little bit to the throat, if you will, of direct communication. And oftentimes we have protectors that are like, do not go there. That is too much, too overwhelming to our system. And likely a protector is not going to want you to be that direct and sharing your needs, expressing your needs. And instead might ask you to go back to the behavior that's comfortable for you, avoiding sending an indirect text or taking on and overfunctioning. The goal is here to do baby steps, what I like to reframe as belief steps. You really reset the goal, not to make other people responsible for your needs. The goal is to stop pretending you do not have them. Now, you might not necessarily be like, Amelia, I don't think I've ever really explicitly shared out loud that I don't think I have needs. Like, of course I have needs. I'm a human being, right? There might be some narrative that's going on there. But the thing is here, through my experience, I have seen so many leaders, so many evolvers pretending that they don't have needs to make sure that they can prioritize connection over the needs that they have. And that might look like contorting, that might look like chameleonizing, that might look like masking up and doing behaviors that kind of pull you out of alignment. So we really want to make sure that today's focal point, the goal is to stop pretending you do not have needs. Because my friends, you do have needs. And we are not robots. We all have needs. So the next time you notice yourself reacting strongly, before you shame it, before you explain it away, you try to logic your way out of why you don't need to meet it, before you decide that you are too much, I want you to pause and ask yourself, what need is trying to speak through this reaction? Because sometimes the part of you that you have been trying to silence, either consciously or unconsciously, is the part carrying that exact need you most need to hear. You are not too much because you have needs. You are human because you have needs. And the work here is not to erase them. It is to understand them, honor them, and learn how to meet them with more clarity, care, compassion, and self-leadership. Because when you can hear the need underneath the pattern, you stop fighting yourself and start relating to yourself differently. And what I've seen in my work with thousands of people, when you stop fighting yourself and start relating to yourself differently, what I have found, you do the same with others too. You start relating to others differently, more wholeheartedly, and with more compassion. And if you want to dig a little bit deeper, you want to actually go a little bit further in the specific practical application in your world, join me and other evolvers at EVE Reflections, where we will dig into this together as a community, where you're not alone and where you are working on this with other evolvers. Click the link in the show notes. You'll get access to that. And I'm excited to continue this work together as we evolve together. Take care, everyone. Until next time, keep evolving.